Expect more. This is Channel 6 News at 5.
Good evening and thanks for joining us. I'm Imani Payne. Chris and Leslie have the night off. A gunman went on a shooting rampage in West Texas this weekend, killing 7 people and wounding more than 20 others. Channel 6's Barry Roy and Maria Aguilera are in Odessa tonight with more on how the community is dealing with the tragedy and what police are saying about it now. We begin our team coverage tonight with Maria, who joins us live in Odessa with new details on what happened minutes before the mass shooting. Maria.
Imani, as authorities continue to process the crime scenes, we now know that the shooter made a call to 911 rambling just 15 minutes before the shooting began. And that's not the first time that he made a call like that. In a news conference earlier today, the FBI and Odessa police said the shooter made calls to both agencies while he was rambling. No threats were made. Then he also called 911 when the shooting began and identified himself as the gunman. Now, ATF and other authorities are investigating how the shooter got a weapon since he previously failed a background check when he tried buying a gun. The FBI searched the gunman's home yesterday, but did not say what they found other than the house wasn't clean. Special Agent Christopher Combs did mention that Saturday's shooting was not unique compared to previous shootings. He says there are signs people should be on the lookout for, including spiraling downward, change in behavior, and a desire to see violence. And there is still no clear motive to what led the gunman to kill 7 people and injure more than 20 over the weekend.
Very few instances do people then reach out to a mental health professional or a boss or law enforcement to say, hey, this person is of concern. This is what I have seen, and it has me very concerned. If we could do more of that, I think some of these we might be able to stop.
From 15 crime scenes, authorities are now left with 2 to process. And as for the people here, they are just working to recover from the tragic event over the weekend. But for now, reporting live in Odessa, Maria Aguilera, Channel 6 News.
Thank you, Maria. Continuing our team coverage is Channel 6's Barry Roy, also in Odessa tonight, with more on how 2 cities are coming to terms with what happened on Saturday, an event that will forever alter the landscape of Odessa and Midland. Barry.
Yeah, good evening to you, Imani. I have been in the cities here of Odessa and Midland now for less than 24 hours, and the mood in these towns is quite somber. There is an uneasiness that is here in this town, and that is because just a few days ago, there was that shooting spree that took place, and that has changed lives not only in these 2 cities, but it has altered many more throughout the state of Texas. Odessa and Midland strong billboards, those can be seen throughout the town. The mood of West Texans can be felt up and down Interstate 20. That is the road that connects these 2 cities. Now, people I spoke with today say that they are not the same as they were just last week.
Everybody in the Permian Basin is shaken by this, in that I have been to that place, I've been to that movie theater, I've been to that store, I've been down that street, I've driven on that highway. It could have also been me.
They didn't even want to come out today, and yeah, I didn't want to come out all day yesterday. It was, it's bad that you're scared to even leave your house.
Now, Imani, it is quite surreal here in this town. I've talked to quite a few people. One guy I talked to, he did not want to appear on camera. He says he just cannot believe. He's been here for a long time. He just cannot believe that this has happened in his own backyard. Reporting live in Odessa, Barry Roy, Channel 6 News.
Thank you, Barry. Gun reform is back in the spotlight after Saturday's mass shooting, and President Trump says increased background checks for buying guns would not have stopped it. Alice Barr has more from both sides.
Imani, this afternoon there are new reports that the gunman failed a background check, and as investigators are trying to figure out how he got a gun, the larger gun control debate is ramping up.
That you are a God of compassion.
7 families are grieving the loss of loved ones. 22 more victims recovering from injuries after another mass shooting in Texas.
I have no idea how he came into possession of this firearm. The ATF is doing that part of this investigation.
And as investigators look for the motive that made a 36-year-old man open fire along a highway between Midland and Odessa.
He went to that company in trouble. He's probably been in trouble for a while.
A cycle as familiar as it is painful has started over again. Democratic lawmakers are pushing for tougher gun control measures when they return to Washington next week, from universal background checks to red flag laws and banning high-capacity magazines. Top Republicans in Congress have signaled an openness to some kind of gun safety legislation, but they're looking to President Trump for guidance.
The only thing that will make that happen is the president deciding and communicating clearly and consistently exactly what he wants.
On Sunday, President Trump emphasized mental health over background checks.
Going back even 5 or 6 or 7 years, for the most part, as strong as you make your background checks, they would not have stopped any of it.
It's a stark contrast to 3 weeks ago, after mass shootings in El Paso, Texas and Dayton, Ohio killed a combined 31 people.
There's a great appetite, and I mean a very strong appetite, for background checks.
The same war of words set against the newest backdrop in an American tragedy.
The New York Times is reporting that 53 people died in mass shootings across the country in August alone. In Washington, Alice Barr for Channel 6 News. Amani, back to you.
And Governor Abbott tweeted this morning about the gunman, saying not only did he have a criminal history, he also failed a gun purchase background check here in Texas. And he didn't go through a background check for the gun he used in Odessa. Abbott goes on to say we must keep guns out of criminals' hands. And don't forget, you can continue to get updates on this story by heading over to our website. That's kcentv.com. Well, it's time now for a first check of our weather. Chief Meteorologist Andy Anderson is standing by with more on the track of Hurricane Dorian. Hey, Andy.
Hi there, Amani. Yeah, we'll take a look at Dorian here in a second. I want to bring you up to date on our weather here. We've had no changes. Beautiful Labor Day for us. Live look from downtown Temple in the Sky Live weather camera, brought to you by Standard Insurance Agency. Promises to be a nice night for us here tonight. We'll have more on the forecast here in a moment. But as you said, we want to bring you up to date because this is the big story everybody's talking about right now, is what is this hurricane going to do to Florida? It's sitting just about halfway between Freeport in the Bahamas and the area around Miami, just up and down the east coast there. It looks like the storm is going to push its way northward and may not even make landfall on the U.S. coastline. If it does, it is likely going to be back up here on the Carolina coast, probably close to Cape Fear, and several more days. In the meantime, we're talking about copious rainfall amounts, even with the storm's strong side being offshore for Florida. They're going to see higher than normal tides. We're going to see strong gusty winds and very, very heavy rains. Again, we're quiet here across Texas. We got a little bit of rain down in the Texas Hill Country, south of the Colorado River. Promises to be a clear sky, dry night for us tonight, with winds out of the east and northeast. It's low humidity value, so that makes it even more comfortable for us here tonight. Our temperatures cooling down into the low 80s by bedtime. Complete details on the forecast coming up a little later in the news.
Thanks, Andy. After causing catastrophic damage in the Bahamas Sunday, Dorian is now hovering over the islands just off of the coast of Florida and is expected to make a turn to the north. 5 deaths have been reported so far. Evacuations are now underway from Florida to the Carolinas. Jamie Garola is in Florida with the latest.
We need help, everything down.
Daylight reveals a path of destruction left in the wake of Hurricane Dorian after making landfall 3 times in the Bahamas.
The water is about 6 feet. God be with us.
Rain and storm surge wallop the islands. Grand Bahama taking the biggest hit. The catastrophic Cat 5, when it made landfall, is the first hurricane of that intensity to hit the area.
The windows are broken, and now water is coming through those big windows you see over there.
Bahamians were recording the damage in disbelief.
Everything is just in ruins.
Now Dorian is taking its time in the Atlantic, barely moving. This satellite image off the Florida coast shows the magnitude of the storm. Residents on the East Coast urged to remain on guard.
We are in a situation where the storm is stalling very close to our coast. It is going to make a movement, and the movement that it makes is going to have a lot of impact on Floridians.
Parts of South Florida have seen a change in weather as the first bands arrive.
Err on the side of caution and leave if you can. Everything's replaceable. Your lives are not.
Power crews in Florida on standby as conditions begin to deteriorate in a Sunshine State. Georgia and the Carolinas are next in line. Heavy rain and winds now threaten coastal areas, prompting evacuations in South Carolina as the region braces for Dorian's impact. In Pompano Beach, Jamie Garola, NBC News.
You can continue to track Dorian's path by downloading our mobile app or just heading to kcentv.com. Well, it's a moment in history books across the nation when JFK's killer Lee Harvey Oswald was shot and killed while being escorted by police in Dallas. Channel 6's Cole Johnson joins us now. And Cole, one local man has a very personal connection to this event.
Yes, Imani, the infamous photos that you see behind me of the shooting shows Oswald handcuffed to Jim Lavelle. Lavelle died late last week, but is survived by a big family, including his nephew, Lori Lavelle, who lives near Belton. Here's the video from November in 1963. You see Oswald walk out with Lavelle. Then you see Jack Ruby, he's going to be coming up here, run up to the pair and shoot Oswald. It was a story Lavelle told often. His nephew Lori says he had a lot of fascinating stories about his job. Lori says Lavelle was a comic and really could connect with people. He worked his way up as an officer after he served in the military. Lori was in his first year of med school when the shooting happened, and he didn't immediately see the TV. Once he finally did, he saw his uncle and realized how serious this was because he could have been killed. And decades later, he says Lavelle could remember every detail.
I never realized that his life was that much in danger until I saw that on television. It's almost like a tape recorder. It just kept, it was just the same story over and over without much in the way any changes.
Coming up at 6, we hear more from Lori and what it's like for his uncle during the Oswald case. Imani.
All right, thanks, Cole. Still to come, we take you to Gatesville for this week's Neighborhood Eats, where home cooking is done by the pros. Plus, an urgent search is underway for nearly 3 dozen people off the coast of Southern California after a fire rips through a diving boat. Stick with us. Welcome back. A fire breaks out on board a dive boat, killing 4 people. And tonight, crews continue the search for the dozens of people who remain missing. Here's more on what happened.
A catastrophic scene and one garbled distress call. From a 75-foot dive boat with 39 people on board just after 3:30 a.m., it triggered a Coast Guard response from San Diego to San Francisco.
Crews from the Coast Guard, Santa Barbara Fire Department, Ventura County Fire Department, and the Vessel Assist have responded.
The conception was at Santa Cruz Island, 20 yards offshore in 64 feet of water. When the Mayday call went out, the boat sank while crews were trying to put out the fire.
The crew was actually already awake and on the bridge, and they jumped off.
A nearby pleasure craft rescued those 5 crew members in the water, but more than 2 dozen remain unaccounted for.
Right now, they're conducting shoreline searches for any available survivors.
Search and rescue crews have found at least 4 bodies so far in their search. On a 3-day outing, the ship was due back at the sea landing early this evening. Jennifer Bjorklund, NBC News, Oxnard, California.
The Coast Guard captain tells NBC they are still in search and rescue mode, but the hope of finding survivors is fading with every passing hour. And he has a full look at your forecast coming up next.
Your fingers.
And it's a new month. We're ready for new, cooler temperatures. I see all those hundreds, and it's just been brutal.
Put it on your wish list. It's going to be a while.
All right, thanks, Andy. Well, coming up next, if you're looking for down-home cooking that is finger-licking good, we take you to Gatesville and introduce you to the feed mill in this week's Neighborhood Eats. Stick with us. Welcome back. It's Monday, and that means it's time for a brand new Neighborhood Eats. This week, Channel 6's Foster Davey heads out to Gatesville, where an old feed mill has been turned into a popular restaurant and has been serving Central Texans home-style meals for almost a decade now.
And then when we bought it, it was actually